you're continuing to work along on your projects, you might reach a point where you'd like to add some titles or type or text of some sort into your Premiere project, which is a pretty common thing. A couple different ways that you can go about doing it. Again, as you like look at your edit here, right? You've got all your you've got your kind of timeline, you've got your cuts starting to get that figured out. If you wanted to just do really simple text add, if you look at your toolbar, you'll see there's a whole list of things down here, and there's one that's called the type tool. So you can click on the type tool and then just click on the screen where you want the type to appear, and you can write so you can put the type in there, and you'll see that it shows up as this like kind of graphic that's above everything else on your timeline, right? And so it's going to show up for as long as you tell it to show up, and then it'll disappear, and you could shorten that by clicking and dragging it back. You can stretch it out so it stays there longer. Really simple kind of baseline thing. It's just a kind of an item that's sitting in your timeline now, and it'll appear and disappear when you tell it to. If you also go in there, though, you can change that around. If you go into your your if you double click it, you'll see there's this little thing here. You can go in here and you can change like the text itself. So you can change, text, sample. Maybe that's what I want it to say instead. So there you go. So now it's going to change that around, and it'll kind of play around with what you're seeing there. And then there's also places, if you go here to like your graphics kind of essential graphics palette, you'll see there's options to change the size. So if it's not the right size, you can double click it just like you would in a word processing program, and then you can click and drag and change like the size of sorry, that's the alignment here. Let's see, there it is. So you can change this underneath where it says text. You can make it bigger or smaller. You can change the typeface if you wanted it to be a different kind of a typeface. There's a million sort of options that you can play around with here. You can change all the things that are available for that particular piece of type, like alignments. You can change the color. If you double click this, you can make the color whatever color you want for the fill, which is the inside color, and then the stroke, if it has a stroke, it will let you change that. So there's all these options. You can do a drop shadow if you want to. There's a million different options that you can kind of play around with. But if we go back now to our black arrow tool, the selection tool, you see that it's like blue type now that sits right there in the middle. And again, if I don't like where it's hitting, I can always click and drag it, around to different places and kind of play around with it that way. So that is a real kind of like, again, simple way to do type or text, and it'll totally work. So that's one option for you. The other option would be if you want to do like kind of templates and official sort of like text-based templates. One thing I should have said was that you can go in here and you can change like the like when it appears and when it disappears, right? So you can change you can keyframe like opacities and all that kind of stuff. Again, that would be just make sure you have it selected, go into effects, and then there's like a million like options that you can go in here and play around with for that, just like you would anything else that we've already talked about for keyframing and changing opacities. So, but the other thing you could do would be to use like a preset kind of like example. So if you go again into like your essential graphics palette, and then you click browse instead of edit, you'll see like there's a lot of templates that are going to be found in here, like a million different kinds of templates, right? And so these are all made for different things. Like you're gonna have a million options here. So let's say we decided to pick one like this one, which will be basically kind of it just has a motion sort of animation to it. So I can just click and drag that down here and drop it into my timeline, and now you'll see the type kind of see how it kind of like appears there, like kind of does that kind of thing up in the top corner. So that's another way to do it. And again, it doesn't have to say coming up next. If you double click on it, you'll get let's see, you go in here and you go to there you go. So if you just hit the button here, you can double click it just like all the other type, and you can make it say whatever you want it to say, and you can mess around with it. There are lots of ways to like adjust that. If you go back into this graphics thing, you can often it'll take whatever animations applied, and it'll let you like mess around with it and play with it. So there's lots of different options. You can turn pieces and parts of it off. Like if you don't want the um, the alpha glow around it, you can turn that on or off up here with the eyeball. There's all these different options that'll change like what's happening. So lots and lots of places to play around with text. And so you want to make sure that you just kind of remember where that stuff is, and as you're adding your type, and again, if I wanted this to appear like against a black screen before the video started, I would do it, like this, and then I would make a transition cut into the thing that comes after it. And it's all pretty straightforward and simple as you look at your timeline. So go ahead and play with type if you want to. Play with text. Remember, there's a lot of different places and ways you can animate it. There's a million effects you can add here. So again, if I select that type and then go in here to like video effects, I can add things to that. There are all these different like options that it will give you inside of these effects here. So knock yourself out, have a good time, and see what you can create as you're learning how to use type in this program.